Hello and welcome to another Warhammer Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to John Branham for sending in some awesome pictures of his 501st Hazardous Environment Cadians, battling it out against some Chaos Knights. Absolutely love the Hazardous Environment models. Such a shame GW doesn't make them anymore, but hopefully they'll fit in quite nicely against the new Kazakin that are coming out soon. So keep our fingers crossed there, John. Looking forward to seeing some Kazakin in your army in the future. Great result for John here. He managed to beat the Chaos Knights 81-40. Absolutely smashed it. Love that result. I imagine those full payload Manticores and Gatekeeper probably did a few things for you, assuming that you took those options. But once again, John, mass thanks for those pictures in. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, then please send them in to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com, or you can post them on my Facebook page. There'll be links and emails down in the description below. But without further ado, let's crack on with today's video. Now, in my recent Chimera video that I did, and if you haven't seen it, I'll link it at the end of this one, I had a commenter that made a really good point. And they said, Mordian Glory, in the last few videos you've done, you've been going on about how Hammer of the Emperor is great with infantry and we should all be running pure infantry. Now you're talking about Chimeras, which one is it? And I thought that was a really good point to raise, because if I do videos one week saying you all need to go out and get your guardsmen together, and then next week I'm saying you all need to go out and get your chimeras together, it feels like I'm sending out mixed signals. And that's the exact opposite of what I want to do. I want to make sure that my videos are clear and concise and informative, and obviously fun and all that kind of stuff, but you don't want to be getting mixed signals, because then you just get confused or disenfranchised, all that kind of stuff. And if I'm being selfish for a moment and I'm thinking about myself, I don't want my reputation to get out there that he's a hypocrite who doesn't know what the frig he's talking about. So what I want to do today, guys, is I want to answer the age-old question. What is the better route to go down? Right now, in 9th edition, what is the better route to go down? And in general, what is the better route to go down? Should you go mechanized and armored, or should you go pure infantry? Or should you go somewhere in between? Now, a few weeks ago, I will say I was talking about pure infantry being the way to go. Alright, and you wanted to be taking loads of conscripts, and I even ran my 365 conscript army, and it did really well. And many other people were seeing success with running similar style armies. However, 9th edition, more than any other edition, is in a constant state of flux, and this is by design, this is by intention. GW wants to keep stuff fresh, and there's two reasons why they want to keep stuff fresh. Firstly, they want the game to stay fresh. They want to stay interesting, exciting. Every time the meta starts settling down and we start seeing the same people, the same armies winning tournaments, what does GW do? They release a balance patch, they update points, a new campaign book comes out, a new codex comes out. They constantly keep the game in a state of flux, because that constantly keeps the game interesting and engaging for its player base. Now, some people, this is an entirely different video, but we'll just sort of touch upon it here. Some people will say, when you change things too much, people get frustrated and leave. And that is certainly a good point to raise. And it's one that, it's a fine line. So one we'll address in another video, but it's a fine line. But by and large, GW want to keep the game fresh and interesting because it keeps people engaged. Obviously, there's a risk of them getting burned out. The other reason they obviously want to do it is because if they keep changing things up, naturally people will go out there and buy new models and update their army, and so GW generates money from it. That's why you will see them go through very predictable cycles. One edition melter guns are hot, the next edition it's plasma, then it's back to grab, then it's back to melter again. One edition poxwalkers are the greatest thing since sliced bread. The next one, it's plague marines. The next one, it's terminators. One edition, conscripts are amazing. Then it's infantry squads. Then it's tanks. Then it's back to conscripts again. It's a very predictable pattern that once you've been when you've been in the game long enough, you start to see through the lies of the Jedi. You start to see the cycle and the patterns coming, and you can almost preempt them. So that's one thing to raise. Why 1 week or 1 month I might say one thing, and then another month I might say another thing. But that doesn't really, and so that kind of explains why things change constantly and why it can be a little bit frustrating. So looking specifically, we've looked at the general picture, looking specifically, why was I saying pure infantry was good a month ago, and why am I now saying I like chimeras? Okay, Very simple. A month ago, when Hammer of the Emperor first hit and everything was the way it was, we were looking at the ability to take loads of conscripts in multiple detachments, upgrade them to white shields, and really abuse that game mechanic. Really find the pressure point, and lasguns could vaporwave and melt everything, and it was great. But if the CP changes come in, and I've talked about the CP changes in a recent video, if the CP changes come in, it's not a case of that one will become better than the other. Quite frankly, the pure conscript list will become almost, if not entirely, unusable. It will become impossible to run it. Because, unless you're willing to, because if you're taking 3 battalions, that will use up all of your pre-game CP if GW says we're starting with 6 now. Therefore, you can't upgrade to any white shields. Therefore, you can't run the army anymore. So then you start thinking, well, do I bring it down? I could take a brigade and start making things work there. Yes, you could, but then you're going to start removing more conscripts. You're going to start removing things to pay for elite choices you weren't paying for fast attack choices you weren't paying for mortars you weren't paying for, and then before you know it, you're not running 300 plus conscripts anymore. So that is why things have changed. That is why I'm now talking about chimeras, because if we're now all going to kind of be forced to be running single detachment armies, which I can't really complain about, because I've been talking for a long time about how I wish, I love bot action so much because everyone's got the same force org chart, and then now the GW Spy has fed that back to GW, and now they're basically us all playing in one detachment. I can't really complain about that too much, but my point is that if we're going to be limited, or in many, especially if you're running a Cajun army, it's a CP thirsty bitch. You're going to need your CP as much as possible. If we're going to be forced down to one detachment, 60 infantry doesn't cut it. Yes, you could probably take some conscripts in infantry, but 60 infantry really doesn't cut it if you're running just infantry squads. And so what you've got to do is try and find ways of making those 60 infantry stay around longer, and also kind of like double them. Double their durability, double their maneuverability, double their firepower for the same troop slot. And that's where dedicated transports come in. And that's why I started experimenting with chimeras. That's why I've had 3 games with my chimeras when I haven't used them for the beginning of pretty much the year. And I've been loving it, and they've been doing me really, really well. So that is why, specifically addressing that point, that comment I made, really valuable point, why 1 month I was talking about infantry and now I'm talking about chimeras. I'm preempting the way things I expect things to go. I'm giving you guys the heads up. I'm saying, look, this is what I've heard is coming. This is how I'm going to be dealing with it. You guys now know that. Use that knowledge how you will. So that's one point. I think it's really important to address that. Now, we've talked generally about 9th edition waxing and waning. We've talked specifically about conscripts 1 week, chimeras another week. Let's dive down one more layer. Let's dive down one more layer, and let's talk about the age-old question of mech guard, armoured guard versus pure infantry guard. Because this question is as old as time. What is the best way to run my guard army? And depending on what edition you're in, depending on what meta you're in, it will determine what is the right answer for this. It's as simple as that. This question will constantly change. One edition, it will be mech guard, which is better. The next edition, it will be pure infantry. The next edition, it'll be hybrid. It will constantly be in flux. And so it's very difficult to answer that question and say, this is the answer and this will be the answer for all time. Because we all know meta shift. We all know that. My Steel Legion had fantastic success in 8th edition. My hybrid Cadians were almost, they were in a 60-65% win rate throughout the whole of the beginning of 9th edition. And now we're looking at Mech Guard making return, looks like in the latter part of 9th edition. Maybe not, maybe, but that's, it might be. It might be. But if I had to give some solid advice, if you were like, well, Morning Glory, if there's no right answer, why don't you I might as well stop watching the video now then. No. Bear with me. If I had to give some solid advice, something tangible, something you can take to the bank with, something you can use when you are deciding what purchase you want to make. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to pounds and pence, it comes down to dollars and cents. You need to know what is the best thing to buy. You do not want to be wasting your money. Okay? And so the most important thing I would say is it comes down to what you want from the game. What you as the player want to get out of 40k and specifically out of your guard faction, out of your guard army. There's two ways of approaching this. The first way is you chase the meta. So you've already, now chasing the meta can often and is often referred to people that constantly switch armies. One moment the Harlequins, next moment the Custodians, next moment the Tau. You can also chase the meta from within a beloved faction. That's what I do with Guard. I've been fortunate enough that I've got a large Guard collection. I've been collecting for a long time. And so I am in a privileged position. This is not a humble brag or anything like that. It's just me acknowledging the position I'm in, and I am acknowledging that not everyone is in this position. I'm in a position where when the meta shifts, I can essentially chase it without having to spend lots of money. If you're not in that position, then what you have to accept that if you're going to constantly be trying to get the best out of your Guard army, very, very noble thing to do, but you are going to have to accept the fact that you're probably going to be spending a lot of money. Because you're going to have to accept that, right, I need to run pure infantry now because that's the more competitive thing. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, you're like, right, now it's time for me to get some chimeras because I need to chase the meta. I need to get the most out. I love Guard. I'm not willing to change, but I still want to do as best I can possibly do with them. And so that's why you'll need to go out and get some chimeras. So that's one approach. And so that's how you decide what armies you're going to take and how you're going to approach your army and your faction. Okay. The other way, and this is something that I would put out to all Guard players, whether you're just getting started or whether you're a veteran or maybe someone who's just maybe returning to the Guard. Okay. The other way of determining what is the best Guard army for me, what is the best I can do with Imperial Guard, is to ask yourself, what is your playstyle and what is your preferred army style? Are you a treadhead? Do you like tanks? The best thing for you to do in that case is to pursue that path. Because if you go out, if you love tanks, but then you go out there and buy 200 infantry, more often there's a chance you will discover a playstyle that you never considered and you love it and you have a great time. However, there is an equally strong chance that you'll be miserable. Because you'll be going, I've got all these dudes, I'm slogging through painting them, I don't really enjoy painting them, I don't really enjoy using them. Yes, my win rate is better, potentially, but probably not, because I'm not really jiving with the army. I'm just not getting it. And then you're just not going to enjoy yourself. So that is why it's very important to instead go, I'm a treadhead, I like mechanized units, I don't care about the meta, I want to do as well as I can possibly do with the army style that I prefer. And that's why, and I've talked about this loads of times before, guys, but it's really important to collect a Guard army with the theme that you love. Do you guys remember what I did about 6 months ago? Getting started with Imperial Guard. What's the best way to do it? And I said, have a theme. Because if you have a theme, you'll fall in love with the army and you won't care how many times you win or lose, because you'll just be having a semi looking at all your models on the table like, yeah, I pedal those are fucking great. Oh yeah, but you'll make brum 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 noises, you move your tanks around the table because you'll be really into it, you'll be really enjoying it. This is why, we're going off a bit of a tangent here, guys, we're going to wrap up in a moment. This is why I often say that Guard players always strongly represent the tournament scene, even when we're dog shit. And why? And because, well, people go to the tournaments and they just want to go there to show off the army that they love, and that's what it is. Anyway, going back to the matter at hand. Why is it important? It's not just a case of enjoyment. It's not just a case of, oh, well, I like tanks, so I'll get tanks. It comes down to tactical results. It comes down to game results as well. If you prefer tanks and you prefer infantry, whatever your preferred playstyle, you'll play more games, you'll get good with it, and you'll very quickly gain the experience you need to start winning games, because you'll be like, right, I know these are the weaknesses of my army. I've played a dozen games now, and now I've worked out how to counter my vehicles getting tied up. Flamers on them. Now I've learned how to counter that I can't do as many actions. Right, I'm going to go spearhead, objective, secured, and my tanks, blah, 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 blah. Right. And so that's why it's important to collect the theme that you like, because you'll want to play more games with it, and you'll get more experience, and then you'll start doing better. I'll wrap the video up on this note. There's a story that every single gaming group will have, literally without fail. There'll always be that player who has been there forever. He's part of the furniture, and he always runs basically the same army. Could be a guy that's got Ultramarines and he's been collecting them since, you know, Assault on Blackreach or Battle for Macragge, and they've all got flamers and missile launch, and he doesn't have any primaries, he just uses firstborn, and his list on paper looks like a joke. But he consistently smashes with it. Consistently goes to tournaments and, you know, gets a 50%, 60% win rate. He's always got a team spot reserved for him. Every team tournament that the guys go to, he's always got a spot reserved. You know, hey Jim, do you want to come to the tournament? And they never worry that Jim's not going to be bringing, you know, Custodes or the top meta pick, because they know Jim is solid, right? And they know that they won't ever let the team down, because he's really, really familiar with his army. And he's got so much battlefield experience that he always somehow punches above his weight, simply because he knows exactly what each one of his units can do. He knows the list so well that when he might move those tactical marines out into the open to hold an objective, and a load of people will think, what the hell is he doing? Why is he moving out in the open? But Jim will know, because of just innately, just instinctively, well, I know that these boys will be able to survive this many shots, and I only need a couple of them to live, and that's more than likely going to happen, so I'm going to achieve what I need to achieve with that unit. Or likewise, you might be, why is he split firing like that? And it's like, because Jim knows what these Marines do. He knows what this unit does. He's fired this unit literally thousands of times, and he knows the results that this unit gets every single time. He just knows what it can do, he knows what it can't do. So why are we talking about this? When it comes down to knowing what's the best path to take, can't get any more words out, there is no right or wrong answer. It comes down to what you love, and it comes down to having plenty of player experience. I have run, there will always be times where it doesn't matter what you run, you're going to run into the top tier ultimate bunker busting stuff, and it just creams you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, there's always going to be something broken in 40k. But if you are good with your faction, and you are good with your army, it almost doesn't matter what you have. Almost. There's obviously, if you took the whole army of Weird Vein Psychers, no one can help you with that. We're going to start wrapping the video up there, guys. But before we end today's video, I want to say a huge thank you to my channel members and Patreon supporters. It is thanks to the generous support of these groups that the Morning Glory channel is still able to keep going. There's no exaggeration there. The support that I get from these guys allows me to get more models, it allows me to attend more tournaments, it allows me to get more books, supplements, all those kind of things, and it just allows me to be able to do the channel to the best of my ability. So I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who is a channel member and a Patreon supporter. It really does mean the world to me. And you guys know that you're super appreciated. I want to do a couple of shout outs. I want to say a massive thank you to some of our latest channel Patreons and channel members. So I want to say a huge thank you to Sean Beasley and Mike Harris for signing up on the Patreon page. Thank you guys, really, really appreciate it. Your ongoing support makes a massive difference. I can't say thank you enough, guys. So huge thank you to those guys. I also want to say a personal thank you to our top tier Patreon supporters, John Stubbs, August Varney, Shooter McGavin, and Swordfish Thumbs. All of these guys have pledged at the Commissar or Lord General level or above, and it's thanks to these guys' support that this channel really is going from strength to strength. So those guys who have signed up at that top tier level will be getting a thank you and a shout out in every single video going forward. So massive thank you to those guys. Can't say enough of a thank you to them. I also want to say, finally, last but certainly not least, I want to do a shout out for the current latest channel members: Aaron Rowley, Bo Pates Mini, Jamie Oster, Nicholas Walsh and Eddie Astor. Massive thank you to you guys for becoming channel members. Thank you for doing your part, and of course, if you want to become a channel member, click the join button next to the subscribe button on this video. But there we go, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.